Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Swallowed Star 2 Land of Origin Part 4 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. In one of the floors of the Star Tower, within a vast and boundless space, sat Luo Feng cross-legged, his body beginning to grow in size. Grow. 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 From his original stature, just one blade's height above an average true god, Luo Feng's height surged in the blink of an eye, far surpassing the elegant mountain range over 100,000 kilometers high near his cave mansion. Not even one of his small toe could compare to that mountain range. The space-time of the Land of Origin is extremely stable and suppressive. True gods are generally about one blade's height. Now that I am showing my true size, I am only 120 million kilometers tall. Gazing down on his majestic true body, Luo Feng contemplated, the suppression of the Land of Origin is indeed too strong. If I were in the surrounding regions of the primordial cosmos, my godly body would be many times larger. In different regions, whether it's the speed of time flow or the pressure of space, the environment is drastically different. In the regions of the primordial cosmos, the stature of true gods is extremely large. I broke through from the true god level to the eternal true god level in a short period of time. My perfect divine body hasn't grown to its limit. Luo Feng was very clear that his microcosm was ceaselessly absorbing primal chaos current and transforming it into divine power, continuously fueling the growth of his godly body. Every moment, he was growing taller. 120 million kilometers was just a height during the developmental phase. Accumulated over the long years of the Land of Origin, there are not a few who possess unlimited godly bodies. Luo Feng had a wealth of information about unlimited godly bodies. Among his predecessors of Duandong River, 2 of them had unlimited godly bodies. How tall could a perfect divine body grow in the stage of an eternal true god? Luo Feng didn't know, because there was no precedent. But he understood the height of unlimited godly bodies. An unlimited godly body at the level of an eternal true god, under the environment of the Land of Origin, can reach a maximum height of 3.6 billion kilometers. Luo Feng thought, I have a perfect divine body, so my growth limit should be even higher. Let's just develop gradually. Luo Feng sat cross-legged with closed eyes and began to delve into the study of the primal chaos great strength diagram. Having a perfect divine body, Luo Feng naturally wanted to make the most of his advantage. He carefully selected from the massive heritage he had obtained and chose the body-refining secret technique, Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram. To refine the godly body like a secret treasure weapon, a weapon that is 100 kilometers tall and one that is 100 million kilometers tall have vastly different powers, even if the principles of their creation are similar. Luo Feng studied and understood meticulously this body-refining secret technique. The Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram appeared to be a common body-refining method of the Primal Chaos realm, but it was very suitable for those with large godly bodies. This method was divided into 6 layers. The first 3 layers were at the eternal level. The last 3 layers were at the Primal Chaos realm level. Primal Chaos Great Strength Diagram, first layer, foundation building. With a thought, Luo Feng summoned a small amount of artifact refining materials and began to use the secret technique to melt them. With the strength of Luo Feng's perfect divine power, melting the materials was quite effortless. Even if he understood the technique of melting, it required repeated trials. Artifact refining is not easy. And it's even harder to refine eternal true god level weapons. Luo Feng learned the various artifact refining techniques recorded in the secret technique, naturally encountering all sorts of difficulties during the learning process. The characteristics of the materials, their combination, engraving formation diagrams, how different formation diagrams combine. Time after time, he encountered difficulties and then solved them. Fortunately, I became an eternal true god through understanding the essence of laws. Luo Feng couldn't help but reflect while studying the artifact refining secret technique. Those who became eternal true gods through bloodline cultivation know how things work but not why. Without understanding the essence of laws, their difficulty in learning artifact refining secret techniques is probably much greater. In fact, any top secret technique is not easy to master. Even if one acquires a secret technique, there is no guarantee it can be perfected. The path of cultivation gets harder the further one advances. Only those who understand the essence of the laws, and take each step solidly, can hope to reach the godly king level. Time passed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Each day in the land of origin is equivalent to about 1 year in the primordial cosmos. Considering also that time flows faster in the primordial cosmos, a second here passed as 10,081 seconds there. So, 1 day passed in the land of origin meant a staggering 10,081 years had passed in the primordial cosmos, that is, an era. Luo Feng's microcosm, with a diameter of 100 billion light-years, crazily absorbed the primal chaos current and condensed it into divine power, connected to Luo Feng's true God's heart, providing for the growth of his godly body. Inside the Star Tower, Luo Feng, with a height of 120 million kilometers, was also slowly growing taller. 130 million kilometers, 140 million kilometers, 200 million kilometers, 300 million kilometers. As his height increased, the more divine power he needed, and the slower the rate of growth became. Immersed in the study of the primal chaos great strength diagram, Luo Feng lost track of time. Ha ha ha, each occupation has its own specialities. Fortunately, I have a deeper understanding of the laws, and luckily this is just the first layer, foundation building, of the primal chaos great strength diagram. I've finally got it all figured out, Luo Feng laughed heartily. Oh. It was only then that Luo Feng noticed he had grown quite a bit taller. My height has reached 800 million kilometers. This height seemed trivial to Luo Feng. After all, according to the information he had, unlimited godly bodies could reach a height of 36 billion kilometers at the stage of an eternal true God. My godly body is still growing. It would be most appropriate to refine it once it has finished developing, Luo Feng thought. Otherwise, refining the body while it was still growing would waste a lot of materials. Time to explore other secret techniques. Luo Feng was captivated by his cultivation. Having just become an eternal true God, he naturally improved in all aspects as he practiced various secret techniques. And the feeling of continuous growth was very addictive. World-breaking 9 blades, Lai Yuan technique, Duan Mia, Donghua, 9 netherworlds. Luo Feng, in his state of seclusion, was completely immersed in them. He could also sense the manifestation of primal chaos laws in the neighboring primal chaos ruins at any time. Studying various secret techniques while observing the primal chaos laws, Luo Feng felt insights flooding into his mind. The collision of different secret techniques, combined with Luo Feng's extraordinary talent, made rapid progress all but inevitable. To be able to cultivate to an eternal true God in the primordial cosmos region. To cultivate a perfect divine body in such an environment and to have ones will reach the pinnacle of primal chaos. Luo Feng's talent was beyond doubt. Immersion in cultivation caused time to continually pass by. When Luo Feng had researched several secret techniques for a while, one day, his increasingly majestic godly body suddenly stopped growing. In the small universe of the primordial cosmos region, which was at its limit of absorbing primal chaos current, suddenly slowed down the absorption. Luo Feng's godly body also shook, halting his cultivation. My godly body, it's not growing any longer. Luo Feng felt new divine power accumulating in the true God's heart but could no longer make the godly body grow. At last, it has grown to the limit of the eternal true God stage. Unknowingly, it's been 1.2 billion days since I came to the land of origin, over an era already, Luo Feng thought. An era on the land of origin equates to 10 billion days. Luo Feng had sequestered himself for just over an era, and in that time, 1.2 billion eras had already passed in the primordial cosmos region. The small universe had continued to absorb energy for such a long time, allowing Luo Feng's godly body to grow to its limit. My current godly body height. With a slight sensing, Luo Feng became clear of his current height. It has grown to a height of 180 billion kilometers. That's 5 times the ultimate height of 36 billion kilometers for unlimited godly bodies. His height was 5-fold. The vastness of his divine power was more than 100-fold. Even in the time-space environment of the land of origin, my height has reached 180 billion kilometers. I am even taller than the walls of Huyang City, which are probably around the level of my knees, Luo Feng mused. With such a massive godly body, those primal chaos overlords who do not possess unlimited godly bodies are probably not as tall as me. According to the intelligence he had, those who cultivated their bloodlines to become primal chaos overlords, no matter how special their bloodlines or how formidable their secret techniques, had not exceeded a height of 100 billion kilometers. Of course, in terms of the quality of divine power, insights into the primal chaos laws, and weapon secret treasures, those primal chaos overlords were far superior to him. Even if it were the secret technique of willpower. The secret technique of willpower, which was relatively rare on the land of origin, was something primal chaos overlords could easily acquire several of, perhaps nowhere close to Lai Yuan technique, but they also had various application techniques. Those who were able to cultivate to the primal chaos realm had their wills toughened to great strength. Combined with the secret technique of willpower, it was very hard for Luo Feng to even think of heavily damaging his opponents with his will alone. Now, I still fall significantly short in all respects when compared to the primal chaos overlords, Luo Feng felt, sensing the vast divine power contained within his 180 billion kilometer tall godly body. Since the godly body has grown to its limit, it's time to commence full body refinement. With a thought, the vast materials stored in the Star Tower flew out, with Luo Feng skillfully beginning to smelt the materials, precisely controlling the proportions, and gradually fusing them into every part of his godly body. Each step of the foundation building, in the first layer of the primal chaos great strength diagram had been thoroughly practiced by Luo Feng, and he had experimented with a small amount of materials, therefore, full body refinement now went exceedingly smoothly. Days passed by. Refining a secret treasure that was as tall as 180 billion kilometers, even when fully understanding all the steps, was an exceedingly complicated task. With Luo Feng's powerful will, his meticulousness in inscribing every formation diagram ensured there were no mistakes, and it finally took him more than 300 days to complete the first layer of the primal chaos great strength diagram. At last, I've refined the first layer, Luo Feng exhaled in relief. The artifact refiner materials I spent 100,000 cosmic sands to buy are almost used up. Luo Feng felt somewhat melancholic. Just for foundation building, such a vast amount of materials was consumed. Luo Feng now also realized the only downside of his godly body being too large, which was the horrifying consumption of body refinement, 100,000 cosmic sands. I thought I prepared enough, but it turned out to be barely sufficient to complete the simplest first layer. How many cosmic sands will I need for the much more complex and vastly more consuming second and third layers? 1,000,000 cosmic sands? 2,000,000 cosmic sands? Luo Feng felt the pressure. To think of someone like He Duomo accumulating treasures worth just over 10,000 cosmic sands. This time it was just good luck, with the tremendous wealth from the rare treasure blue-purple blood crystal flower, that he had gathered enough to complete the first layer's foundation building. Luo Feng introspected his godly body. Within his massive 180 billion kilometer tall godly body, besides the original complex structure, there was an additional layer of secret treasure structure, with dense secret patterns infiltrating every drop of blood, deeply integrated into every piece of bone. The cost was great, but the effect is rather good. Luo Feng was quite satisfied. It's time to leave seclusion. With one thought, he packed up the Star Tower and lifted the formation seal of the underground palace. Boom 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 tilde tilde tilde. The passage of the underground palace opened, and Luo Feng flew out, arriving at his own cave mansion. Now it was night, with a cold wind howling, and the entire cave mansion was quiet. Marosa was not inside. Secluding myself for just over an era, for eternal true gods, is considered a relatively short seclusion. Luo Feng had decisively chosen to seclude himself properly to make up for his many shortcomings, especially after his first battle upon arrival in the land of origin, in which he had been utterly trounced. In just over an era, Luo Feng's various aspects had been sufficiently replenished. You've returned quite quickly. Luo Feng looked up, and with the sensation of soul enslavement, knew that Marosa had swiftly made his way back as soon as he had emerged from seclusion. Phew! A stream of black light flew into the cave mansion. It was Marosa, who from afar excitedly shouted while carrying a big jug of wine in one hand and a large piece of roasted meat in the other. Master, master, you've finally emerged from seclusion. I've been anxiously waiting. Luo Feng looked at the jug of wine and grilled meat in Marosa's hands and couldn't help but laugh. You seem to have enjoyed yourself these days. On our way back, you just couldn't let go of the wine and meat in your hands. Enjoyed myself? Marosa took a big bite of the meat and shook his head repeatedly. Not at all. Master, you told me not to cause trouble. Throughout this entire era, I didn't dare to stir up any kind of trouble. It's been so frustrating, I've been holding it all in. Very frustrated? Luo Feng pressed on. Marosa nodded vigorously. Huyang City is a mix of different powers, and there are some battle-hungry maniacs who deliberately pick fights. According to my temper, I would have squashed them with one hand long ago. But the Master's command comes above all else. I would rather die than disobey. So, I just had to endure it, turning big issues into small ones, and small issues into nothing. Luo Feng was curious. You turn big issues into small ones, and small issues into nothing. Sector beasts, born from the path of destruction, have an inherently ferocious nature, and Luo Feng was curious how he could possibly have endured. I just slightly injured them enough to let them feel the difference in strength. Then I made them pay a fine, Marosa explained hurriedly. This isn't causing trouble. If one does not fight back when attacked, they will only be bullied even more harshly. Luo Feng nodded. I understand. A coward in Huyang City will be devoured without leaving any remnants. Master is wise, Marosa said with a laugh, and couldn't help but take a few more sips of wine, savoring it. Back home, you didn't like to drink much, Luo Feng observed curiously. Marosa's eyes lit up and he quickly said, Master, since you've come to the land of origin, you haven't really had a chance to taste the local wines, right? Some of the wines here taste so much better than those back home. Let me have a taste. Luo Feng took the jug and tilted his head back for a sip. Upon taking a sip, he immediately felt as if his soul had been nourished, feeling comfortable and relaxed. This is interesting, Luo Feng exclaimed in surprise. Since arriving in the land of origin, I've only had a cup of chunmi wine at the Flame Wind Pavilion, which has a relatively restrained flavor. But this wine of yours is domineering. It even affects my soul consciousness. Luo Feng's soul consciousness was so strong, yet he still felt a sense of comfort and relaxation. If a true god of void space were to drink it, they would probably feel so comfortable that they'd be ecstatic. Marosa nodded and said, creatures born in the land of origin can consume the power of heaven and earth from birth, so they don't actually need to eat or drink. Their food and wine are not meant for energy replenishment, but they do have some peculiar effects. Either a very strong olfactory stimulation or some benefits to the godly body and soul consciousness, making true gods crave them, Marosa explained. Luo Feng nodded. He was aware of this as well. The common food and drinks in the land of origin were not valuable, it was the special food and drinks that fetched a high price. They generally had miraculous effects like refining the godly body or nourishing the soul. Like this jug of wine here, it costs 3 primal chaos crystals. I have to drink it sparingly, Marosa admitted with a hint of cherishing attachment as he put it away. Food and wine are so enticing? Come on, Marosa, take me to have a look, Luo Feng said. Marosa's eyes sparkled, and with his mouth agape, he swallowed the huge piece of grilled meat in one bite, then quickly said, Don't worry, Master. Although I don't know much about other things, in these past eras I've come to know quite a bit about the food and wine in Huyang City. I'll show you the way. But... Marosa smirked and chuckled, I'm quite broke, so you'll have to foot the bill later. Look at how stingy you are, all that pocket money is given by me, Luo Feng said, all right, lead the way. Let's go. Marosa, decisive and swift, led Luo Feng out of the cave mansion. Under Marosa's lead, after flying for a while, the two of them arrived at an ordinary restaurant called Fire Realm Restaurant in Huyang City, which did not cover a large area and was rather unremarkable. In this past era, I have tried many delicacies, but the Fire Realm feast here is my favorite, and it's not too expensive either, Marosa introduced. Luo Feng looked up. The name, Fire Realm Restaurant, stood out as part of the formation. Black Butcher, come out quick! Marosa yelled, and also explained to Luo Feng, Master, Black Butcher is the owner of this restaurant. I've been here many times and am very familiar with him. He also comes from the land of origin that broke through the cycle of reincarnation. From the land of origin that broke through the cycle of reincarnation. Luo Feng was surprised. Suddenly, a fat man emerged to greet them, his hair and beard as stiff as needles, his body covered in scale armor, sporting tusks, and with a pair of fiery eyes, like two burning stars. He walked out full of enthusiasm and with great respect. For a supreme to come here is an honor for my Fire Realm restaurant. This was an eternal true god. Since his ordinary little restaurant opened, the number of eternal true god customers could be counted on one's fingers. Prepare your specialty, the Fire Realm feast, quickly, Marosa urged. This way, please. The fat man, known as the Black Butcher, immediately led the way. In one of the small buildings within the Fire Realm restaurant, Luo Feng and Marosa took their seats. The Fire Realm feast requires me to cook it myself, so I ask the Supreme to wait a little while, said the Black Butcher before respectfully taking his leave. Meanwhile, an attendant brought in some drinks and side dishes as an appetizer. As soon as the attendant entered, Luo Feng noticed him and exclaimed in surprise, "Is it you, you little fellow?" The attendant was Suo Zi, the young man from the tribe that Luo Feng had saved. Greetings to the Supreme. Suo Zi quickly bowed respectfully. Ha ha ha. Marosa laughed and said, "I've come here many times and often had this Suo Zi serve us. Master, you saved them back then, and now bumping into each other in a restaurant is quite fateful." "It is quite a coincidence," Luo Feng nodded. "How did you end up working in this restaurant?" Suo Zi was grateful to this kind eternal true god. Without Luo Feng, their entire team would have perished back then. To answer the Supreme, after Suo Yun and I settled in Huyang City, we needed to earn primal chaos crystals, whether to pay the residence fees or for our own cultivation. Suo Zi explained, "I got lucky. The owner saw potential in me and recruited me as an apprentice." "This lad has a gift for cooking," Marosa interjected. "Being skilled in cooking can help one settle down in Huyang City." Suo Zi immediately added, "I am currently learning from the owner. Your restaurant owner has a bit of a reputation in Huyang City. Coming from the legendary primordial cosmos, inhabitants of the land of origin are naturally skilled in culinary arts. Moreover, having integrated some culinary heritage of the land of origin, the combination makes his cooking truly stand out among the true gods of void space." Marosa praised, for he could now be considered a connoisseur. Suo Zi nodded and said, "I have always been working hard at learning. If I don't study well and get kicked out, I'll have to risk my life outside the city." Luo Feng listened on the side and asked, "What about the brothers who settled in Huyang City with you?" "Suo Yun has become an ordinary guard for a big family," Suo Zi said in a low voice, "living life on the edge." Luo Feng understood. An ordinary guard for a big family is cannon fodder, always the first to rush into the thick of things and do the grunt work. "They both have some talent, that's how they found jobs," Marosa said. "From what I've seen, about half of the true gods in Huyang City have to frequently go outside the city to hunt exotic beasts." Luo Feng was already aware of this information. The inhabitants of the land of origin, especially those at the middle and lower levels, mostly relied on hunting exotic beasts to make a living. Many were responsible for gathering and processing exotic beast materials, forming a vast industry chain. As for service jobs within a large city, the thresholds are very high. Without sufficient talent and strength, one isn't qualified for these service jobs. During the conversation, "Here it comes, here it comes." The restaurant owner, Black Butcher, walked in, waving his hand, and a lavish feast appeared. Various dishes and foods were displayed, with the most eye-catching being the huge fiery red meat in the center. The meat in the middle exuded an aura of flames. "Supreme, I was a true god who embarked on the path of a culinary god in my homeland of the primordial cosmos," the Black Butcher said with a smile. "After becoming the true god of void space and traversing the cycles to the land of origin, even with my cooking skills, it was difficult to set roots in Huyang City. So I started from scratch and became a butcher in Huyang City, starting with helping to slaughter the exotic beasts and processing their materials, step by step understanding the characteristics of exotic beast materials. It took a hard 50,000 eras to achieve something, and only then did I open this Fire Realm restaurant. Supreme, please try my Fire Realm feast," the Black Butcher said with confidence. In the long history of the land of origin, there had been many powerful individuals from the 3,000 primordial cosmos that had come through the cycles. Each primal chaos prefecture had some. To promote his business and attract customers, the Black Butcher had tried every possible method. "I'll try it," Luofeng began to taste it. The Black Butcher watched nervously on the side. If an eternal true god enjoyed it and came often, it would be like a live advertisement. Only then could his restaurant become more famous and attract more customers. Luofeng sampled each dish, finding the appetizers and drinks in the beginning simply decent. But when he tasted the huge piece of meat in the center, Luofeng's eyes lit up. "Master, you have to take a big bite to really appreciate the flavor," Marosa said, and Luofeng, listening, took a big mouthful. Instantly, a third of the enormous piece of meat flew out, rapidly shrinking as it entered Luofeng's mouth. The meat was large, but he chewed and swallowed it easily. Boom! Luofeng felt as though flames were spreading from his abdomen to his entire body, as if refining his entire godly body. Even his soul and consciousness felt pleasantly warm. Eating the Fire Realm feast is like swallowing an entire world of flames, making one feel as though their godly body and spirit have been transformed, the Black Butcher said on the side. "It's as if one has been reborn." Luofeng glanced at him with a smile. "Reborn?" That seemed a bit too mystical. But indeed, it was rather comfortable. For those with weaker godly bodies, perhaps there really would be a sense of transformation of the godly body and spirit, a feeling of being reborn. "Supreme, what do you think?" The Black Butcher was somewhat anxious. "Not bad," Luofeng complimented. The Black Butcher could only nod. "This feast I created myself." In some of the top restaurants and eateries in Huyang City, the culinary arts were handed down by primal chaos overlords or even godly kings, while mine can only be considered minor tricks. Luofeng took a sip of wine and added, "Cultivation is fundamental. Coming from the primordial cosmos, you should have no way to practice the bloodline cultivation method." "Yes," the Black Butcher nodded. "I can only follow the path of laws, but understanding the source of law is too difficult. Even though the laws are clearer in the land of origin, I've reached a bottleneck and have been unable to break through, which is why I've thought of seeking external aid. I opened the restaurant hoping to earn some wealth and purchase resources to assist my cultivation. But even opening a restaurant is tough," added the Black Butcher. "This Fire Realm feast is pretty good. Keep up the hard work." Luofeng had eaten half of it and let Marosa have the rest. Marosa happily gobbled it up eagerly, quickly polishing off the entire thing. After paying a fee of 10 primal chaos crystals, Luofeng and Marosa left. At the Fire Realm restaurant, Black Butcher, accompanied by attendant Suozi, saw them to the outside of the restaurant. "Suozi," the Black Butcher gazed into the distance, "do you think that Supreme will come again in the future?" "The Supreme seemed quite fond of the Fire Realm feast," Suozi said. "Let's hope so." The Black Butcher mused, "Only if an eternal true god comes here often can it attract enough true gods to visit." Back in his homeland of the primordial cosmos, he had been an unbeatable existence, but after arriving in the land of origin, he had faced a tough struggle. In terms of strength? In large cities, true gods of void space were commonplace. People like Moyu who also had to venture into the wild. The Black Butcher was extremely proud at heart. Adventuring in the wilderness could be fatal at any moment, and he was unwilling to take that risk. Starting from the bottom as a butcher, his restaurant in Huyang City had gradually accumulated a number of regular customers over the years. "I must make this restaurant even bigger, only then can I earn more, and my chances of becoming an eternal true god will be greater." The Black Butcher turned and walked back toward the restaurant. In Huyang City, even a small restaurant owner might have an extraordinary background. Because the city was full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, with so many strong individuals around, making a name for oneself became that much harder. Marosa spoke while flying, "We just visited a rather affordable eatery. Next, we shall visit one of the top pleasure destinations in all of Huyang City." "One of the top pleasure destinations in Huyang City? Where?" Luofeng inquired curiously. "Dream Flower Tower," Marosa stated mysteriously. The myriad clan's cultivators usually conceal their true bodies to appear similar, but they actually are from various clans, Luofeng said. Some don't even have genders, and their preferences can differ vastly. How can this dream flower tower attract cultivators from all the myriad clans? Wait and see, Master. You'll understand soon, Marosa replied. As they conversed jovially, a magnificent complex of buildings emerged ahead. The complex covered a vast area and was enveloped in a formation. Numerous attendants could vaguely be seen flying around, their laughter, the sounds of musical instruments, and roars softly emanating from the area. There's the Dream Flower Tower ahead, Marosa remarked poignantly. Everything is perfect, except that it's expensive. A green-robed figure flew toward them to greet them, acting very humbly. It's an honor for Dream Flower Tower to host the Supreme. Inside Huyang City, the eternal true gods were the most powerful beings, as they were the sky of Huyang City. They each had their affairs, and it was only on rare occasions that Dream Flower Tower could host an eternal true god. This is my first visit, you take care of the arrangements, Luo Feng instructed. Yes, the green-robed attendant answered with a charming smile. I shall arrange for the most prestigious Orchid Star Hall for the Supreme. Leading the way, the attendant flew ahead with Luo Feng and Marosa following. The formation of the entire Dream Flower Tower was like a vast labyrinthine world. Marosa marveled, I've visited several times but never ventured this deep into Dream Flower Tower. It seems this place is only for truly honored guests. Suddenly, Luo Feng frowned slightly as he looked ahead. Being a perfect divine body, his sensing range was broad and sensitive. At that moment, he sensed something he disliked happening in a hall ahead. The spacious hall was gathering guests from the myriad clans, all of whom were drinking, talking, and laughing as they watched a life-and-death battle unfolding at the center of the hall. Two true gods were trying everything they could to kill their opponent. The center of the hall was bloody, with more than 10 bodies of true gods that had reverted to their original forms after death. Kill him for me. If you lose, your entire family will join you in death, an enraged green-robed guest roared. Songqiu Mountain, out of the 10 servants you dispatched for this ultimate battle, only this one remains, while I still have 3 servants yet to fight, another guest, with 8 arms, chuckled leisurely. It seems this bet will belong to me. HMPH, it's not over yet. My guard has exceptional talents, capable of killing all your remaining servants, the green-robed guest retorted angrily. Is that so? The 8-armed guest raised his glass. The other guests were also exceedingly excited. Songqiu Mountain, I bet on your side to win, but your servant isn't doing well, only one left. My servant will win. He must win, said the green-robed guest, his face contorting fiercely. Meanwhile, the eyes of the 2 true gods fighting in the center grew increasingly frenzied, having no way out. Each side had sent 10 servants, and the battle wouldn't end until all from one side were dead. Who would willingly participate in such a cruel gamble? But they had no choice. I left my tribe and came to Huyang City in search of opportunities. I gained inheritance and grew stronger. But now, I am dying here. I wonder how my sister is doing in the tribe, a bald true god, clearly at a disadvantage and struggling to hold on, thought. Kill him, the green-robed guest shouted fiercely. And after that, kill the remaining 3. I will reward you handsomely. Amusing, said the assured 8-armed guest. At that moment, Luo Feng, Marosa, and the attendant flew past from a distance, and Luo Feng glanced over here briefly. The laws of Huyang City prohibited killing. However, considering the true god's pursuit of strength, some also craved battle. Therefore, as long as both parties signed a life-and-death contract agreeing to fight voluntarily, Huyang City would not intervene. But Luo Feng understood at a glance that these true gods fighting in the center of the hall were clearly volunteered to fight. Was tilde. Luo Feng merely glanced once. An intangible aura then swept across all creatures in the grand hall. Originally reveling and betting guests suddenly felt targeted by an unimaginably terrifying being. The 2 true gods, originally fighting to the death, found their thoughts stalling and their minds blank under this terrifying aura. Almost all of these extraordinary guests were true gods of void space, yet the silence was deafening, with none daring to make a sound. Supreme, the flying green-robed attendant exclaimed in shock, halting immediately. I was feeling quite good today, Luo Feng said, a hint of coldness in his brow, speaking indifferently, but seeing this dirted my eyes, spoiling my mood. The green-robed attendant trembled in fear, hastily responding, it's an oversight on Dream Flower Tower's part. Such life and death betting is not allowed here. It's our mistake for spoiling the Supreme's mood. Tonight all your expenses will be on Dream Flower Tower. Let's go to Orchid Star Hall, Luo Feng said. Yes, the attendant resumed, leading the way. Marosa glanced back at the hall from a distance, chuckling sinisterly, a bunch of brats. He then followed Luo Feng towards Orchid Star Hall. Inside the hall of the life and death bet. Everyone should leave quickly, the serving attendant urged urgently. That unfamiliar eternal true god apparently dislikes this life and death betting. Hurry up, everyone leave quickly, said Songqiu Mountain, the green-robed guest, immediately. You were lucky, said the eight-armed guest. He dared not linger and ran swiftly, disappearing quickly outside the hall with 3 guards escorting him. Other distinguished guests also hastily fled. The 2 true gods who had been fighting glanced at each other. Unexpectedly, we both escaped disaster, they said, collecting the bodies of their fallen comrades before also making a swift departure. Deep within the Dream Flower Tower was the core hall, Orchid Star Hall. Even though Dream Flower Tower is one of the top places for enjoyment in Huyang City, only occasionally does an eternal true god visit, Marosa said as he sat aside. Usually, the guests are primarily the true gods of void space, who indulge wildly while those attendants dare not stop those from influential clans. The green-robed attendant was helping to pour wine by his side. There is too much impurity in the world, how could I possibly manage it all? Luo Feng said leisurely, the air I dispersed was merely a warning to them. What if they ignore your warning, master? Asked Marosa. Then they are disrespecting me, slapping my face. Then their deaths can blame no one else, Luo Feng stated. Upon hearing this, Marosa hastily replied, Master is indeed kind-hearted to still give them a chance to live. The attending green-robed attendant silently trembled in his heart. Many distinguished guests in that hall had come from top influential families within Huyang City, and this strange eternal true god spoke of killing so easily. Could it have been just casual words? Luo Feng noticed a woman dressed in black walking into the hall from outside, who bowed slightly after entering. Supreme, the green-robed attendant helped introduce her. This is the direct disciple of our tower's master, musician Su Ya. Marosa also added, in the whole of Huyang City, very few eternal true gods excel in illusion technique, and only the Dream Flower Tower master is willing to perform illusions to entertain the guests. Luo Feng nodded. He had also practiced the 9 netherworlds, and had just reached the level of eternal true god. Indeed, if illusion technique was not used for combat but for entertaining the masses, it could have remarkably effective results. Begin, Luo Feng was curious as to what kind of illusion technique the Dream Flower Tower used to attract the cultivators of the myriad clans. The woman in black sat by herself, waving her hand to make various musical instruments appear before her. As divine power was infused into the instruments, sounds of various instruments resonated immediately. Every instrument had the capacity to affect the spirit, and their combination instantly transported Luo Feng back to his past memories. His emotions began to heat up. Luo Feng seemed to see the scenario where many people on Earth bravely faced the golden-horned giant beast. Using musical instruments as a guide, the foundation of illusion technique influencing emotions. Thrilling. Exciting. Flaring up. For those of us who have cultivated for endless ages, our spirits become more and more tranquil, like the vast land, hardly fluctuating. It's very difficult to make my emotions violently fluctuate. Luo Feng had no resistance and let himself be influenced by the musical illusion voluntarily. But his spiritual will was too strong, at the pinnacle of the primal chaos level, and no ordinary illusion technique could shake it. It merely reminded Luo Feng of some memories from Earth. That period of passionate burning years. Right, within the Lai Yuan technique, there are many secret techniques for cultivating spiritual will, including one called the 7 Emotions of Heart Refining Technique. As numerous surging memories from the past emerged, Luo Feng also recalled the 7 Emotions of Heart Refining Technique. The 7 Emotions of Heart Refining Technique actively amplifies the perceptivity of the spirit, making it very easy to be touched, joyful, furious, or sorrowful. Afterward, using these varied emotions as nourishment to refine the spiritual will. With that thought in mind, Luo Feng began to perform the 7 emotions of heart refining technique. As the method operated, his perceptivity of the spirit quickly amplified. The previous music and illusion technique that had only slightly resonated with Luo Feng now had an effect many times stronger in an instant. Boom! Luo Feng was momentarily transported back to the past. Sit down, close your eyes, remember, do not resist, Luo Feng said in a deep voice. Understood. Mohandasan, Ist, Tripati Singh, Jiao Yi, and Sokolov were sitting in their respective positions according to the 6 blades secret technique. They looked at each other, their faces revealing strange smiles. It was indeed the scene where they 6 sacrificed themselves against the golden-horned giant beast. A passionate thought surged in Luo Feng's heart, transcending life and death, with only the single thought of slaying the golden-horned giant beast. Under the aid of the 7 emotions of heart refining technique, this intense emotion made Luo Feng's eyes well up with tears. The purpose of the musical illusion technique was to serve the guests by invoking beneficial emotions. Passion burning, love, unyielding promises, brotherhood shared through life and death. After a while, the black-clad female musician stopped playing, and she was somewhat surprised by the expression of the unfamiliar eternal true God, as eternal true gods generally do not indulge so deeply in their illusion effects. Luo Feng's eyes faintly filled with tears as he slowly opened them. Good, very good, Luo Feng quietly said, excellent. This episode ends here.